I'm David Annandale, and you're listening to Masters of the Forge.
Welcome to episode 5 of Masters of the Forge. I'm Adam, and with me today is Camille.
Greetings.
And Snorre.
Hola.
Hola, bienvenidos.
What was that?
That
I have
was
no idea.
languages. Those were languages that were not either German, Norwegian, or English.
Are you still sniffing 7th edition book fumes?
You're the one who's the perpetrator of that, sir. Okay, yes, me too.
So you did get the new rulebook then?
Yeah, I did. Here's the thing. I like to participate in the conversation, and I feel like especially these days with the podcast, I feel like I want to be a participant of the conversation. So I went ahead and did it. So, 7th edition, man, lots of changes, very few changes at the same time. What do you guys think? It's kind of like a much ado about everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I would say that if you already had a look at our Facebook page, you would see that I love 7th edition. I loved 6th edition because I thought it was a real big step towards what I like to play. 7th edition is even better. I was really worried about the psychic phase, but it's actually quite awesome. And it makes it much more fun because now you can't just say, oh, I'm going to use this power, and you roll 2 dice and you just roll them basically for the motion of rolling dice, not really to check to see if you can do it. Because how often did you fail a psychic test?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really awesome.
Yeah, I for my part actually am going to reserve my opinion until I actually played 1 or 2 games and until I'm actually finished reading the book, because I didn't have that much time yet to do that. But seeing that we're all narrative-minded gamers, I guess we're sort of on the end on that end of the spectrum where it doesn't affect us that much.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Well, our group is basically we've decided to go with the Will Wheaton rule. You know, don't be a
Sheldon?
yeah, don't be a phallus, because it is important to just enjoy the game as it is, or enjoy the game as you want to play it, and if somebody decides to break any of the new Force Org rules, well, you know, they won't be very popular. Last night we had a guy bring 8 bloodthirsters because he has 8 bloodthirsters for some reason. And sure, but at the same time, we also had a guy who wanted to try out his canoptic list. He brought all his canoptic stuff. So we had 2 players running those lists against Battleforge guys. So, and everybody had a good time. So it's not bad. But, you know, again, we'll have to reserve judgment. But as far as we narrative players are concerned, I guess it doesn't truly matter.
Yeah.
But I hasten to mention that I have spent the better part of the past 2 weeks, well, not the better part, but I've spent the past 2 weeks kind of trying to exert political will on the community to try and get people to not want to play 5th edition.
According to your Facebook messages, it was of rather limited success, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Was.
Seriously, 5th edition, or do you mean in 6th edition? Previous?
I mean 5th edition. There.
Wow.
Once Reese started posting about, you know, how the tournament organizers are getting together to talk about how they're going to play the game, so many people started posting all these changes that were basically just, let's make it as close to 5th edition as humanly possible. And it was infuriating. However, after I made that Facebook post today, Reese did release the BAO format, and it is rather good. It is very, very promising. Lords of War are in. Over there, they're kind of embracing some of the tenets of the new mission systems and stuff. I think it's a good step forward, and I think by this time next year, you might see a little bit of a loosening of the force organization choices too. So I'm cautiously optimistic, and to be honest, I would give a kidney if I could make a nice trip down there to across the continent to support that tournament. Anybody who can should, I think.
Yeah, I was just going to say that your input on the whole topic of the impact of 7th edition is going to be pretty much the most interesting of us all three, because I think you're of us three, you're definitely the most involved with tournaments and also have the broadest player base around yourself. I, for my part, sort of felt, or rather hoped, that 7th edition as it is would actually help the casual GameStar playing crowd to embrace narrative gaming and craziness a good bit more. But I guess we have to wait to see how that develops.
Yeah.
I think there was a really good point made on the Overlord's latest episode. That's 152, I think. Where it's like, so you bought a Battle Force box? Great. Now you can actually play with just that box, just to get to know the game. And that's just like, wow, that's actually really, that's so true. It's amazing just how simple that thing is. You can actually buy a Battle Force and you can get into the game. You don't have to buy extra models to fit any Force org. You could just say, Unbound, I'm playing with a Battle Force.
Yeah. You can, you look at the wall of GW miniatures and you say, which ones can I play? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you guys want to get into weeks before this gets too long? Because episode 5 is a whopper, isn't it, Snorri?
Yeah, it's close to 2 hours of just gaming content.
Yeah.
And that's not including the intro that we're recording right now.
Yeah, that's right. And I would like to I'd like to mention that is something that won't change with 7th edition. We are still going to be a podcast that is devoted to, our mission is to help the listeners bring the world of 40K to life on their tabletop. I think we all agree on that one.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Even though there are a lot more options, and I think I'm excited about maybe using some of these new options and coming up with some fun ways to use them, like the tactical objectives and Unbound and all that. And also maybe even instead of coming up with entire new units sometime or army lists, we could come up with new detachments and stuff. All right, let's move on to weeks. Okay.
Yep. So Adam, you can start.
All right, so I won the tournament. That's right, everybody.
Wow.
Cheers. Yeah, well, okay, let's be honest. 7 or 8 people showed up. So it was the last 6th edition tournament. I brought my Star Eagles in the drop pods, which is my super fluffy list from 6th edition, which is now probably a super, super dick list in 7th edition with 18 possible scoring units.
Wow. That's just mean.
Oh, yeah.
But you played 6th edition, right? So
yeah, that's right. So nobody can say nothing. Yeah,
exactly.
six objective secure drop pods and 12 objective secured combat squads of space marines. It is so dumb. I may not bring it because that sounds mean. Anyways, I played a very conservative Grey Knights list with 2 Dread Knights and a bunch of Strikes and Rhinos, which, Warp Quake. That was the worst list I've ever played against with my Star Eagles, because the drop, the deep strike shenanigans that they cause. I lost that by 1, and then I played a Rhino-y and Wolf Cavi Space Wolves list and Tyranids. Unfortunately, none of these games were very narrative. A lot of gray plastic and stuff, but my opponents were all pretty good. So it was a good time. So like I promised last week, in the last episode, if I won the tournament, I was going to buy the book. So there it is.
Yeah.
So I last time I said I was gonna work on the Titans while camping. Instead, I went camping, got yelled at for driving 7 miles per hour instead of 5 miles per hour, and read Chains of Golgotha by David Annandale.
Awesome.
Yeah, that is a great novella. I really enjoyed it. Every orc player should read that book. Everybody should read that book. It is great. I'm not going to ruin it. It is really good. Okay, I crunched in on Sunday, and I worked on the Titans. Well, the Titan, I got the head completely finished, and I have the gun barrels on. All that's left is the neck and details, and I will be done with the first Titan.
Nice.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, pretty great, right? Last weekend we had Albany Exterminatus, we had a 58,000 point game. That was awesome. They got T-shirts for everybody, and there were prize for best Gargant, prize for most friendly, and prize for best painted. And I got the best Gargant, or best super heavy for the big Gargant that I built with the store owner. So I took that. Yeah, I took that. I decided to invite my brother-in-law, who just turned 17 or 18, I can't remember. I think he just turned 18, and he's at that age where I think he could start getting bad influences, falling into those. So I've decided to try and get him into the group, into the gaming. So I invited him up, and since I won a prize, I decided to use that prize to get the last Assault on Blackreach box that we had in the store.
So you pretty much settled on, just steering the kind of bad influence he falls under.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good point. Yeah. So, yeah, he's being influenced in a bad way, but a different bad influence, and not quite as bad influence.
So you're setting him up with Space Breed so you can take the rest of the orcs from the Blackreach box just because, well, they're orcs.
He can take whichever. He can do whatever he wants with those models. Doesn't mean. Yes, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Because he can take any army from that box that he wants, as long as it doesn't take the orcs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know you.
That's right. Plus, I have a warlord to build for Steve's campaign, so I need that war boss. So there we go.
You have learned nothing, have you?
So, what else? So he got that, and I loaned him the fluff book and the hobby book from the new release. So I guess it's coming to use.
I guess that is what those books are there for, yeah. Because I'm honestly a good bit disappointed about the fact that virtually none of this, neither the artwork, nor the miniature photography, nor the fluff they're describing in the book is actually at least rewritten or expanded or even, dare I say, new. That's,
that's why I didn't feel bad because... Even though we're on a fluff podcast, I didn't feel bad about saying I didn't want the big rule book because I already have that rule book. I have that fluff. I own it. I don't need it again.
Yeah, you really shouldn't feel bad about this. It's rather, I don't know. I don't want to, come off as too negative, but that is sort of a disappointment if they do, if they print that splendid an edition in terms of, the materials used and the layout. And I really, really want to love those books, but at the moment, well, I'm still engrossed in the rule book, obviously. But after that, I guess I will at some point have sort of a stale taste in my mouth from the other two.
Right. Well, that's what you get for pushing your nose in between the spine and sniffing.
Yeah.
So
he
seems interested. He seems interested. So hopefully he'll get on the horse and hang out with us Monday nights. I started a new project for Frontline Gaming. It's a Space Marine army of someone's own design. So I have a Land Raider, a Rhino, 20 Marines, 5 Terminators and a Dreadnought and a Captain to finish painting, but that's going quickly. I'm actually quite enjoying it, especially since Wendy's doing, Wendy, like I said before, Wendy's doing the cooking and more of the housework. So it's a lot more enjoyable than commissions normally are. I actually enjoyed myself working on the Titan last weekend, for example.
Just a quick question then, as always. What chapter?
It's no chapter. It's his own devising. It looks like he's using some of the bits from the Raven Wing, so I'm not sure I have enough decals actually, but I'm sure it'll all work out. I have plenty of friends with decals that I can steal from.
So it's like in the direction of Dark Angels, but you haven't settled on a chapter name or anything yet, or if they're actually gonna be a part of that legion.
I'm assuming he just wants to use them for whatever chapter he wants, which is
know that you can have a great influence in terms of lore awareness at that point in somebody's hobby career.
Oh, what, Brandon? No, I'm talking about this is a project for Frontline Gaming, not my brother-in-law.
Oh, all right, okay, I got that mixed up for a moment.
That's all right. If it got mixed up with you, it probably got mixed up with the listeners. So good. Thanks for mentioning it. So
probably not. Let's be honest. But awfully nice of you.
I played Star Trek Attack Wing last night. That's all I'll say about that, except for the fact that it was awesome. And I will be going to a team tournament on Saturday with my buddy John, who's been a teacher in Yuma all year. So I'm looking forward to playing alongside him and trying to convince him to collect orcs instead of Grey Knights.
Okay, that's it. We're officially renaming this segment of the podcast Adam's Hobby Corner and Two Guys Being Embarrassed.
Oh, Adam, let's not forget that it was really awesome to have that Gojira podcast. The discussion on whether the CGI Mothra or the old original Mothra was the better in terms of who would win if they fought each other, that was just an epic discussion.
Yeah, it's true. I think that I feel fulfilled by our alternative podcasts. I don't know about you guys.
Some kind of Mothra-like model would make an awesome Nurgle Heldrake, though.
Nah.
I also wanted to interject something really quick. That's it for my actual hobby progress, but I just picked up the White Dwarf number 19 today, and I want to give my first kudos to Jervis Johnson. His article on the Fog of War deployment is epic. I'm not talking about the main part of the article where he says so you basically assign playing cards to each unit, and you shuffle them up and put them in piles, and you remove one pile, and that one pile doesn't get to play in the game. That's really stupid. But what I'm thinking of is actually using those cards for deployment and even for double blind movement throughout the game. So all you see of the other side are blips on your scope or whatever, and only when they get within a certain range or after a certain turn do you actually deploy the units where the cards are. How awesome does that sound?
Sounds cool.
Quite a lot, actually. I'm actually probably gonna get the White Wolf this week when I see if my English Psycho cards arrived on Thursday. So I'm looking forward to reading that, actually.
Yeah, it's really cool. And they've added a lot of value. There's the Sprues and Glue article about the flash kits. They've actually got all the pieces separated by number and categorized them as DACA bits, zappy bits, different, for whatever different kinds of gun you want to use, they've got them all separated out and they explain where they are on the it's really great. I think they're doing really well, and I think that this weekly release schedule has really done a lot to quell a lot of the rumors, because they're releasing it faster and before the people who create the magazine can leak it. I think it's done a really good job.
Yeah, there's actually a bit of irritation going on with some, let's say, regular rumor reporters that, people just don't seem to be up in arms and enthusiasm anymore, about release rumors as they were. And I think a lot of that is like misunderstood as a lack of hype for GW product, but it's rather the fact that GW at the moment does quite a good job at supplying people with with info themselves without really needing the usual big leaks to build up that kind of steam. I think you know what I'm talking about, Adam.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think that was a lot of hot air. There's a lot of political wrangling going on in the community right now. I think a lot of people are trying to tone this down and call it a 6.1 or 6.5 or 6.4 or whatever. And that's for political reasons. For a lot of, I hope I'm full of it. I hope it's not true, but yeah, I think a lot of people are upset that a certain group of people got all the good, real rumors and nobody else did. And a lot of people don't like them. And I think it's got a lot to do with that. And a lot of people are angry that there's no rumors coming out, so they're blaming it. They're saying nobody likes GW when I don't know. People are excited. I think it's a bunch of hogwash. I think it's a bunch of hot air.
I think it's sort of a Bob Dylan situation going on here. Get out of their way if you can't lend a hand, because the times there are changing.
Yeah, and we're all about, what are we all about if not promoting the hobby? I mean, that's what this podcast is really supposed to be doing. We're trying to promote and build the hobby in the community, and this community is too small for us to be wrapped up in infighting. Really,
Yeah.
It really is. We're too small and too precious to be wrapped up in stupid infighting. I say, can't we all just get along and throw dice at each other and murder each other's models?
Word.
All right, sorry. That's my hobby segment.
All right, getting down from Adam's usual rant of absolutely awesome things in a hobby he did, you still do have a job and a wife, do you?
I do have a job and a wife.
All right, buddy, I was worried there for a moment. Let's get to Snorri. You played a great game, didn't you?
Yeah, I actually had 2 game days at the club since last time we recorded. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the first game we had, because that was actually a really fun one. It was 1,500 points of my Death Guard against 1,500 points of my opponent's Iron Hands Gone Nurgle Marines. So they were also played as Plague Marines. And we rolled off for what kind of mission we were supposed to do, and we got a 1. So it was like boring. We went into the Altar War book and picked up Chaos Space Marine mission number 1, which is Loot and Pillage. You have a bunch of objective markers on the table, and every turn we decided you have to be in base contact with it. So every turn you're in base contact with it, you get 1 loot point. And it was basically about trying these 2 factions, both fighting for Nurgle's attention, are now salvaging their butts off, trying to be like the ones who got the most. And it wasn't really an attacker-defender kind of thing.
You pretty much played Nurgle Morka there.
Yeah, possibly.
All right. So first of all, totally kudos on just picking something entirely else that seems fun to you, as you realize that it wouldn't be very much of a fun game what you rolled on that table. Kudos to that.
Yeah, and in the end, I lost by 1 point, and it was only because I tried to reshuffle a couple of Space Marine units because I wanted to have some Melta guys in closer to some other juicy targets, and I wanted to move some Plasma guys over to take the objective that the Melta guys were leaving. I rolled difficult terrain to get into the trench, a 1. And then then I have a run move to see if I can just hop onto the objective. 1.
All right, so
I'm still like half an inch away from base contact.
You went for the bacon, but just got a mouthful of tofu out of it.
Wait, who is this? A cultist?
No, it was a Plague Marine. So he disappointed me deeply.
He needs to be executed. Aren't they slow and purposeful?
Nope.
Okay, good.
So yeah, that was a very close game. It was really enjoyable. And yesterday, I was at the club again, and we decided to have a nice big game to introduce me to 7th edition. And the other guys, they had played a couple of 7th edition games, but not too many. So we decided to go for a doubles 2,000 points per player game. So 4,000 points per side. That was Grey Knights and Space Wolves against my partner's demons with a couple of Chaos Space Marines and my Death Guard. So it was Chaos versus Imperium. Really cool game. We had I had 6 Psyker points on the table because I had a Demon Prince, Typhus, and Necrosius. And my partner, he had 14 Psyker points. And as much as that is, our Space Wolves player, he had 6 points, just like me. And the Grey Knights player had 15 Psyker points. So, yeah.
Gotta love those rhinos!
Yeah, it was 20 versus 21 Psyker points plus dice. So yeah, the psychic phase took forever because there were so many dice being rolled and we were having such a blast. There were hot dice, cold dice, things went off and it was awesome. My personal favorite for that game was Typhus. Because 7th edition, the close combat challenge rules, the change there has made Typhus a beast in close combat again. In 3 close combat turns, I think he rolled 16 extra attacks for his demon weapon, so 2 6s and a 4. And he tore through half a squad of Grey Hunters, plus he killed Njal Stormcaller. And unfortunately, he didn't get very much interesting out of that. He took 2 Mind Strike missiles from Grey Knight's Stormraven to the face. He failed one of his peril checks, took a wound, and he had 6 on the other peril, so he just went super awesome and became even better. So that was like, yeah, missiles to the face, I came out better.
He went Super Saiyan, rolled a 6 and went Super Saiyan?
Yeah.
Nice.
Unfortunately, the Grey Knights player also had his good times because he had Drago on the table. And Drago went up to my Demon Prince, poked it a few times, told him he smelled, and one-shotted my Demon Prince. So, yeah.
Drago's a jerk.
Yeah. In the end, we lost something like, what was it? 12-6 or 10-6 or something because we were playing objective cards. And it was just like bad luck for our side that we didn't get more points, but sometimes you're just unlucky. But we were well on our way to not quite table, but almost table our opponents because we had so many demons on the table. And they started losing quite a few Space Wolves and also even some Grey Knight characters. It was an impressive fight.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, sounds like it.
Wow, yeah, that sounds like fun. Do you feel you were unfairly treated by the cards, or do you just think you didn't have the tools to actually execute the cards on your side of the table?
We had a little bit of bad luck with some of the cards because we had 2 cards that were in our opponent's deployment zone, and it was difficult to get there. By the end of it was like we managed to play 3.5 turns, so we just rolled the score back to turn 3 and saw who won. But it was 2 of those objectives were, as I said, in the deployment zone. We almost had 1 objective cleared of any kind of enemy models, and that's when my Demon Prince, who was supposed to just go in and tear those guys to pieces, the last ones, he got killed, so that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But the other one, that was just 1 rhino sitting on an objective. So it was just a little bit too far away to get close to. So it was just like, okay, so, well, next time.
I mean, despite your cold Scandinavian delivery here, I think that sounds pretty epic what you're describing here.
The game was epic. So there was nothing bad about the game. We had so much fun, all 4 of us.
Well,
awesome.
I think if we had a band, we could go with our nationalities like idiom, and you could be Snorri could be cold, and you could be nihilistic, and I'll be boisterous. Those will be our boy band names. Or no, they won't be our names. Like
Characters, more
yeah,
like characters.
like our character. Yeah, like I'll be the boisterous one, and you can be the nihilistic one, and Snorri can be the cold one. And we just need a cute one. Who would we pick?
Carl?
Wow, you answered that really quickly. That's what I thought at first too, but only because he's already on the cover of Tiger Beat.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I built and started painting the three rhinos actually that I purchased in the UK, and I also built, painted, and fully completed my rotting butcher. So he's
rad.
done.
He's so cool.
He's pretty awesome. Yeah. Now I have 3 demon princes, even though I hardly ever play demon princes. But demon princes are cool.
I guess now you will.
Yeah, there's a good chance I will, actually.
Now, honestly, about that model, the only thing sort of bugging me, myself, and I about it is the fact that he would, comfortably fill out a large oval base, and you've got him on a 60mm base, and he's sort of very much towering above it. Although I get why you just kept it around, because that's sort of the game legal way to field him. I would
It was the base that he came with.
Yeah, I know,
so...
that rule
following
doesn't
Games
really...
Workshop rules.
No,
Don't be a lawyer. It doesn't have to fit the base perfectly. It just has to be on the base it comes with.
It would look better. You could do a hell of a lot of scenic basing. It would be so awesome.
Huge. The base would be so massive.
You know what's awesome? Third-party Nurgle Demon Princes. There are so many really good ones out there. If you just buy 3 more, Snorri, you could just run an unbound list with just Demon Princes.
The surprising thing about that is actually that I, for my part, feel that the GW Nurgle Demon Prince is actually quite a good model, and you have so many alternatives to that. And I, with my Slanesh Warband, are sort of entirely left in the dark, except for a few boo-hoo-hoo, real large nude demon chick models, which I'm really not a fan of.
Hold on, Camille. 2 points. Point number 1, you're right. And the reason for that is that Nurgle Demon Princes are hella easy to sculpt.
Yeah, definitely.
Point number 2. Have you seen the wet nurse from Kingdom Death? Or is it Kingdom Death?
Dude, I want to play in stores, okay? I'm just going to say,
I want to play. About? I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm going to feel those models around children, okay?
Listeners should not look that up at work. Do not look up Kingdom Death wet nurse at work. You will be terminated.
Yeah, not safe for humanity.
The Masters of the Forge is not responsible for any terminations that result from following searches or links that have been suggested by the hosts. Thank you.
Definitely. Now, the point I was actually getting at is the for large Slaneshi demon prints or greater demon models, you usually just get an upscaled naked chick. And I'm personally not a fan of that. I like my Slanesh demons really androgynous and horned and just perverted, but not in that way.
With a swinging hog. Let's just put it out there.
Yeah, I think the design of the basic idea of the GW Keeper of Secrets is what I would like in a model, but it should be a good one.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I agree.
Yeah, so that's sort of my gripe with all the Nurgle selection and all the Khorne selection you have out there in terms of third party, and just not enough love for, the other 2 gods. But not really relevant here. I'm glad you found an awesome model for your Demon Prince, Snorri, and he does look badass. But I'm just saying, his axe would still stick out over a large oval base.
Quite possible.
All right.
So, yeah, I think that's pretty much what I've been doing lately.
All right, so I'm going to be the last one again, and I'm going to have the least one again. So what I'm doing at the moment is mostly reading up on the new rule set while discussing it with my best gaming buddy Ollie, who is currently at that point in reading the new 40k rules, where he is sort of panicking about his Black Templars, and he's starting to get really inquisitive about, hey Camille, you're really fond of the lore, aren't you? You're really fond of house rules, aren't you? Hey, what about some kind of Black Templar character who prays so hard that people go up in flames, like, Upsyker, but not Upsyker, actually. And currently, we have that kind of thing going on where we go back and forth in terms of lore examples of things that should not be, but definitely are. And he wants to, field librarians with his Black Templars in some kind of lore conscious way. I'm trying to talking him into, first up, just wait and see how things develop, because we don't actually have that much people who overdo it on Psychers within the larger gaming circle here yet. And on the other hand, for the Black Templars, I could personally see something like, additionally to the Adamantium will you could have a house rule where every chaplain and maybe every champion of the Emperor counts as a level 1 or 2 psyker in terms of how many warp dice you get to deny the opponent's psychic powers, just make them much more resistant to psychic powers in general, according to the lore. And I'm trying, we're still pretty much discussing this while reading the rule set, and it's sort of a fun phase, except for the part where we are currently not playing, because we're just both too busy for too much hobby activity besides doing reading while traveling to work or whatever. But that is just the usual, new edition, and I'm late to it despite getting my rulebook pretty much from the first hour. Now, on the hobby front, there's some chill movement. Currently painting up my last unit for the first half of the Independent Characters Hobby Progress Challenge, for the first 1,000 points, where up to this point, for the last, I think, 5 entries, I actually do manage to be on time with everything, which is awesome, honestly. Awesome feeling. So everything that's left for my 1,000 points at the moment is a 7-man Devastator squad with 3 laser cannons, 1 multi-melter, and the absolutely baddest Devastator squad sergeant who ever walked the galaxy.
Yeah? What's he look like?
All right. So he's basically in a suit of Mark 8 power armor.
Yeah.
Except for the helmet, which is the kind of very Tech Marine-y Ravenwing helmet you get with all the, layers. I don't know if you know what kind of helmet I'm talking about, but you have those, 3 layers of armor plates over the face.
Isn't that basically just the standard Tech Marine helmet?
No, because it had a Ravenwing, or rather Dark Angel sigil for a mouthpiece. So I assume it was some part of a earlier Ravenwing or Dark Angel veteran kit or something like that. Like a pre-6th edition, But it is definitely a very good choice for a Tech Marine helmet. So imagine Mark 8 with, the high collar, that helmet, and he's got one of those veteran bolt guns, the Sternguard veteran bolt guns with the box mag, and a belt pointing upwards and pointing at you with the other hand. And one of those devastated backpacks where, you have that kind of, the searchlight on it.
The Signum or whatever?
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm definitely going to post pics as soon as those are finished up. But I think this is already gearing up to be my favorite model, my favorite standard power armored model in the whole army. And speaking of outstanding models, what's also on my painting plan for June is nothing less than my chapter master.
Nice.
Yeah, which I think I've posted some pics on the Masters of the Forge Facebook, way back when I converted him out of Sicarius.
Right, I don't remember seeing him, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, anyway, it's gonna be I'm about like, I don't know, a third through painting that guy because I'm pretty much trying. I mean, I've got a solid assembly line of those 7 Devastators and some additional part armored Marines where I'm just going through my usual steps and notions, and I've got my chapter master on the side, and I sort of apply, like, the standard steps to him too. But whenever I feel tired of the whole assembly lining thing, I just switch over to the chapter master and paint some crazy detail, and that's real fun at the moment. And just breaking up the process a little with some awesome, and getting creative with ornaments. And the Sicarius model has a lot of, hidden details and ornaments and non-standard armor parts where you can go, like Chapter Master crazy with it. So I'm really happy with that part of the process. Now that sounds like I'm sort of, painting all the time here, but actually, if you break it down on a day-to-day basis in the last 2 weeks, it's like maybe half an hour a day. But I'm getting there, and while I'm getting there, I'm actually listening to the Pandarax audiobook, which is like the CZ Dunn Apocalypse novel about the war on Pythos.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got myself the unabridged audiobook for that, and that's a lot of fun, actually. I mean,
sounds awesome. I want to read audiobooks, but my wife got me an Audible account thinking that I could listen to 40K novels, and I can't. They don't have that. So
no, that's bad.
Yeah. So I guess I don't. I guess I could read something else while I'm painting, but that it was quite a disappointment.
Yeah, like in the past, I was pretty much listening to podcasts exclusively while painting, but in the current climate of the community we have, I gotta admit that I'm like much better off with audiobooks at the moment, to be honest, just to keep myself engrossed in 40K, because I feel like people are talking much more politics and social dynamics than they talk about 40K.
That is so annoying. I'm getting really sick of that.
Yeah.
But I've dropped a few that are like that. May I suggest one to the? I actually picked one up recently. I'm not sure if they're all this good. But I just listened to the most recent episode of Turn 8, and they do narrative battle reports of their games, and I was very impressed. Very, very impressed.
Narrative battle reports,
yes, huh? They put together like a story, it's a story of the battle report, and it's inspired. Like I do this sometimes on my blogs. But it has inspired me to think about trying to do something similar because I don't want to take their thunder. So I'm trying to think of a spin on it I can do. But it sounds awesome. It is really cool. You should give it a try.
To be honest, it sounds like something we ought to steal, like right now.
Yeah, but what do we have now? We have. Are you done? Is that it? You had some good progress. You had some good progress.
Yeah, whatever I can do. And that's going to brighten up with the remainder of the year. And I'm definitely looking forward to my first games of 7th edition. It's not like that.
You can play your new 1,000-point army.
Yeah, definitely. Guess I'm going to mix and match a lot of that because, let's be honest, I sort of used the whole 1,000-point, I think it was a Zone Mortalis army as a template for what you do in the first part of the Hobby Progress Challenge. Pretty much just used that to, fill it out with whatever I have on the table anyway, because I had a huge backlog of models. And that huge backlog of unpainted models is like only half as big anymore since the beginning of the year. So, awesome thing. I can only recommend that kind of challenge for anyone who just wants to clear out on unpainted models, to buy new models, of course. And that's all.
All right, great. So who's ready to learn about the fall of Damnos?
I hope our listeners are, because we know everything about it, and now we're just gonna get into it.
Yeah. All right. You guys ready? All right. Cool.
All right,
everybody. We'll see you soon.
Hey, Masters of the Forge listeners. Do you want to start a Warhammer 40,000 club in your area? Or are you looking to expand your gaming group?
Do you want the people you attract to that group to be good quality individuals?
Do you want to advertise your YouTube channel?
Do you want to attract more subscribers to your hobby blog or online community?
Then what better way than to advertise on the Masters of the Forge podcast?
All we ask of you is that you email us at mastersoftheforge@gmail.com or message us on Facebook with the full text of your advertisement, including the region in which you live and any contact information people can use to get a hold of you.
We will have one of our many tech servitors read your advertisement on the air. We promise not to make fun of you.
Though we can't always predict the actions of our servitors. You really can't find good help these days.
No, you can't. All right, folks. So today's episode focuses on Fall of Damnos by Nick Kyme. This is a Space Marines Battles book involving the forces of the Imperium, which are in name the
Ultramarines.
Ultramarines. We are blue, and
Noble.
also the Necrons,
Who are
I think
cool.
Sorry.
And mostly green.
Yeah, and green. Lots of green lasers in this
Like
books.
glowy green, yeah, indeed.
Super glowy. And also involves the kind of what I think are the stars of the second stars of the book, which are the human conscripts of Damnos.
Yeah,
I think that they're
Damnosian
very,
PDF.
very strong characters in that faction.
Yeah, but I would say that the conscripts would be not the PDF, but the miners in this book. Not
That's
the miners
right.
as in too young, but miners as in people who work in mines.
Right,
But
yeah.
those guys are so much more hardened than the actual PDF.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, and so the story focuses on these miners of Damnos awakening the Necrons with their mining activities. The story opens up with the miners down in the mine doing their work, and they're overrun by Necron scarabs. And soon after, the Dominator cruiser Nobilis in orbit is destroyed by Necron surface to space artillery. This was I thought this kind of opening scene showing the destruction of the Necrons was really, really, really cool. I've never, like I said, I'm kind of a fluff virgin, so I've heard about how the conditions on star cruisers are in the Imperium, and I thought that this chapter where the cruiser is bombarding the planet trying to destroy Necrons, and the description of what goes on the ship is really, really cool.
That was sort of a mix between the Master and Commander movie with Russell Crowe and the engine room scenes from Titanic.
Right, yeah.
Sort of like that.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like everybody's you can feel the oppression as the workers in the gun decks are whipped into submission to physically load the torpedo launchers faster.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Kyme totally could have, just mentioned that the Nobilis gave off a few salvos before it was destroyed, but he just put the focus on the inner workings and the command crew of the Nobilis for a moment, and that was just awesome. Do you want to read that, Adam?
Yeah, I absolutely
just
would
part
love
of it.
to read it. Thank you. The air was hot and sweaty on the gun decks. Thousands of crew and hauler servitors scurried in packs as the order came down from the bridge. Overseer Kaneen applied the lash to increase their efforts. "Sweat and blood, dogs!" he drawled, bawling above the heavy drone of the engines and loading machinery. His hellish gaze followed the ammo hoppers, hoisted by teams of swarthy, soot-stained men, and glowered. "The captain wants another, we give him another." The crews of the torpedo tubes 5 through 10 picked up the pace. All down the port ventral side of the Nobilis' gun deck, the scene was the same. Overseers urged their crews with threats and cajoling, just like any good Navy men. Now, what follows shortly after is amazing, and I hope the listeners don't mind the swarthy language here. To the overseer, a bombardment was a thing of beauty. Even the many slumber whores he had bedded, in spite of his scars and lack of hygiene, paled. She, the nobilis, was his true mistress, and the bitch had quite a slap in her.
That is just a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
It's good.
All we need are pirate hats, parrots, and eye patches.
Right? Oh, it's so cool. I really like that scene. And one might think it is a bit superfluous, but I think it was good if you're new to the 40K universe, or even as a veteran, to set the mood of the Imperium, like what the Imperium is. And I think this really, really lets people know, or reminds people who are used to it, of what the Imperium is like.
Yeah, and that scene pretty much cross-cuts with the view on the bridge where the captain is actually giving those orders. And just to, continue the trend of sort of dubious language here, he's got quite the boner for his bombardment, doesn't he?
Yeah, and the thing is, they don't even care who they're bombarding. Like, people are dying down there. They're bombing pretty much without abandon. Citizens as well as Necrons are being destroyed in these bombardments.
Yeah,
so I really don't feel really bad about the Nobilis. She can die if she wants.
Definitely. I mean, the captain has just has this air of superiority, and he's so utterly convinced about the invincibility of the Nobilis. It's sort of almost satisfying to see it go down, as you mentioned before.
Yeah. Well, the great thing is, in the book, it said the Nobilis was invincible, or something to that effect. And I said to myself, well, this ship's getting destroyed.
Right away. Yeah, indeed. All right.
Like, oh, yep, this thing's gonna die.
So anyway, obviously, there's a call for help towards other Imperial forces in the sector from Damnos, and
who better to reply to this than the Ultramarines, and especially Captain Sicarius of the Second Company.
Exactly, aboard the strike cruiser Valence Revenge, by the way. And that's not the only prominent Ultramarines figure we've got aboard that strike cruiser, because Scriptor Magister Tigerius is actually aboard the vessel too.
Wait, Camille, do you know what the wonderful thing about Tigers is? That he's the only one.
Really?
Yeah, he's the only Tigger.
All right, you got me there.
So yeah, the Valence Revenge, as opposed to the Nobilis, which is this big lumbering behemoth, the Valence Revenge just dives and dodges and weaves around the wreckage and dodges all these emerald lances coming from the planet, and it kind of does a big hard turn and releases drop pods from his belly.
Yeah, and then flies away. That's quite important too. They go into a secure position out of system, I think, even. But it's pretty notable that a Spaceman battle barge would probably have failed at this point and just gunned down as well as the Nobilis.
Right, yeah.
That's why you have strike cruisers. And the scene they're actually describing in this book is also beautifully written. Just how between all this massive amount of wreckage from the remains of the Nobilis, they just pull this ship through maneuvers that should pretty much probably have broken the ship, but the guy, the people who are driving or steering this thing is so skilled at what they're doing that they push it to breaking point without breaking it.
Yeah, and I think from Death of Antagonists, it is a space marine who's actually piloting the starship, not a servitor or human. So, Sicarius, I'd like to talk about him for a second.
Yeah,
when we first go into the book, he's kind of he's an ostentatious and kind of seen or depicted in the beginning as vain and power hungry.
I would actually contend the point power hungry, because he doesn't really seem to care about the whole political thing with the first company against the second company and everything that is massively hinted at during the novel. He pretty much seems to stay out of that, but he definitely is hunting the glory. That's what I would describe him as. He's
like vainglorious
he's a glory
rather
hound.
than power hungry or
exactly.
ambitious.
Because, the power thing sort of comes as granted because he is amassing so much battlefield glory. As opposed to, I think the name of the first company captain is Agamemnon. Or something like that.
Yeah.
Agamemnon?
Something like that.
Yeah, sorry.
But I think some of the sergeants, like they kind of lay out, or Mr. Kyme kind of lays out this belief in a splinter faction in the second company that Sicarius is bucking for chapter master position.
Yeah. Obviously, only after Marnius Calgar is gonna, pass away. But yes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No. Nothing like they're gonna like.
Yeah. And traditionally, that honor would normally fall to the captain of the first company, who should obviously command the elite. But the situation here is basically that the first company isn't amassing nearly as much glory as the second company. And what I meant with not really characterizing Sicarius as power hungry is that the kind of view with, Sicarius should be the logical follow-up chapter master doesn't come from Sicarius at all, but from his sergeants. They are basically the ones who sort of have a very elitist attitude about the whole thing.
And the situation isn't exactly made any better for these sergeants when two of the first company's dreadnoughts are being sent to the second, because they see that as, they're spying, they can't be trusted, this is just to keep Sicarius back and everything. But, it's not really that.
No, it's really interesting. I had no idea, guys, when I came into this, that there was so much political intrigue in some of these chapters. It's very interesting to me. It was one of the most interesting things about this story, even though it wasn't really. Well, I guess it was pretty forefront, but it is a battles book.
Yeah, but I think that the Ultramarines are really modeled after the Romans. So political intrigue and the Romans, we know that goes hand in hand. So I would expect that to be in this book too.
Right. Yeah. We'll go over the development of that storyline at the end, I think.
Yeah.
So,
by the way,
first, go ahead, buddy.
Sorry to interrupt here, but I just looked it up, actually, and the name of the first company captain is Agamemnon. That's why I straight up surfed into Agamemnon, but it's actually Agamemnon.
Okay, cool.
Which sort of sounds stupid because it sounds like Eggman, but whatever. Maybe that's sort of intended.
Right, so I guess at first we have our initial skirmishes, right? Where the Space Marines drop in and they start taking some territory. You guys want to talk about the Necrons at this point? At first I was a little disappointed in this book because it wasn't a David Annandale style. I noticed right away that it was very much what I expected a Space Marines Battles book to be before I read the Black Dragon story.
Alright, so you sort of missed the twists and turns of Annandale's Death of Antagonist here, because Death of Antagonist obviously was the novel you first read before this one, right?
Yeah, so I was pleasantly surprised by Death of Antagonist, and when I came into this book, I was like, oh, well, this is what I was expecting when I first started Death of Antagonist.
I think it's sort of a conscious choice on Nick Kyme's part that, with the Ultramarines, you don't have anything too unpredictable going on because they're very adherent to the Codex Astartes.
Right.
What did disappoint me about the beginning of the novel a little bit was the fact that you don't really read a lot about the battle over Damnos before the Ultramarines drop in. It's like, first of all, you get a perspective of the initial, finding the Necrons and the first attacks, and then you pretty much straight up jump into the point where most of the Imperial Guard and PDF forces on Damnos are already eradicated.
Yeah, it's like months or even 2 years, I think it is, right?
The description of the miners who escaped the initial contact, that they've been out on the ice for a couple of months at least, just trying to get back to civilization. So there's a big time jump here, but it's probably because it's kind of irrelevant what's going on between the initial contact and when the Space Marines arrive. It's yes, people are shooting at each other, they're losing badly, and
then bombardment.
Yeah.
I mean, it serves the purpose pretty well to just describe and show off the Necrons as a force that the human resistance just can't overcome with regular military firepower.
Right. So I expressed this initial disappointment to Snorre, and he set me straight. This is almost not a exposition book for the Ultramarines. It's more of an exposition book for the new Necrons, and it clicked in my head. Like, yes, that's what this is. This book is an exposition for the new characterful Necrons.
Yeah, because back before this book came out, the Necrons were those like mindless, faceless, evil thing that's just going to come and take over the universe if they had organized themselves properly. But that is sort of a story that, while I do like it, it doesn't give itself to being a good story that you can expand upon to make them was like the big threat. But giving them this new character of having different royal houses that are scheming against each other, and
very characterful leaders, basically.
Exactly. So you still have the mindless horde, but you also have like the people on top pulling the strings. That was a completely new idea. And remember, this book came out well before the new codex came out. So everything in this book was basically a teaser about what's going to happen in the new book.
Right.
And also there's the element of, degeneration and like mental illness between the casters and among some of the leaders that make them act irrationally. That's very interesting too.
You guys want to go through those?
There are different kinds of characters here, and we know them from the codex. You have Sata the Enfleshed, which is a Flayer Lord, and he was the concept of the Flayers was in the book to me a huge disappointment. I did like mentally broken kind of Necron, but at the same time, the Flayers kind of lost something in the new codex because they used to be a terror force. And now they are sort of a terror force, but they are also just like completely insane robots. And that was a bit of a disappointment. I really liked that whole, they're still, it was like a mindless unit that are being controlled, but these guys, I don't see how they can be controlled because they're just damaged goods.
Yeah, they just basically throw them at the enemy and hope they all die.
Yeah, while the old ones, the old Flayers, they were more like purpose-built to cause terror.
Right.
So, yeah.
So we have another Necron character called the Undying. I think he's considered to be the main overlord in charge, but he's suffering from the Destroyer mental fugue that comes across all Necrons. He just eventually debases himself into just wanting to destroy.
Yeah, and modify his body accordingly. He has the kind of affection for his destroyer squadrons, which he sort of considers very pure of purpose, as opposed to all the vain attributes that his fellow royalty aspires to. And it's a very interesting dynamic that the other Necrons are already pretty much plotting for the time after he finally succumbs and is not fit to lead the house anymore.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's a little It's a little Snidely Whiplash, though. They're kind of twirling their mustaches. The dialogue is a little corny, but I'm wondering if that's on purpose because they're robots.
First of all, that, and second, did you notice that there's a quite clear parallel development to the Ultramarines intrigue going on in here? Because it's sort of a theme between both factions that they have subordinates who plot the advancement of their superiors or even their own.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I hadn't noticed that because it's a cryptech called the Architect who's really doing all the plotting in the background, not the lords themselves. That's really cool. It's almost, you know what, the destroyer lord is almost kind of just a hedge. He is almost a parallel to Sicarius.
In a way,
he is headstrong leader who just is like, F it, I'm going in.
Exactly.
Yeah, and just to go back to when this book was released, the concept of a cryptech didn't exist. This was a completely new kind of unit for the Codex, and that was so cool to see. Like here you have sort of like a technomage, even though it's not really a psyker because Necrons can't be psykers, but it gave them an interesting kind of character to expand the whole royal court thing.
Yeah, and they go into saying, our technology is so advanced it would almost seem like magic to you puny humans.
And it is.
Definitely.
Right.
And
I'd like to add something where that Tigurius says later in the book that kind of sums it up. He says, I think I loathed your race less when I assumed you were humorless machines.
Yeah. That's just funny.
So we have the last character in this in the Necron cabal here, and that is the Voidbringer.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He is the one that causes darkness and
yeah, definitely. Not only darkness in the physical sense, not just like this weird dark matter-ish, well, not really dark matter, but it's this weird darkness-based energy, but also in the warp.
Oh yeah, he's the one who assaults Tigurius.
Yeah, he's the reason Tigurius can't use his prescience to look into the future.
Yeah, he pretty much takes on the role of securing the rear of the Necron advance, and enshrouding their artillery pieces that are bombarding Kelmport, the capital of Damnos, from afar.
Yeah.
And thus he clashes with Tigurius because Tigurius himself becomes part of the strike team that is dispatched to destroy the Necron artillery.
Yeah. So we have a scenario to depict the initial skirmishes of the book. So this first mission is called Seize Ground Ambush. It's a kind of a reflection of these missions where the flayed ones are buried under the ice or under the snow, and they kind of spring out upon the Space Marines as they advance through the terrain. So to set the mood, I'll read the quote from the book. Like gruesome marionettes jerking to horrific unlife, the Necron flayed ones sprang from their ambuscade. They'd been buried just beneath the surface of the earth, poised to attack the Ultramarines as they charged. A minefield of sorts, but one littered with an animate and deadly enemy rather than explosives. So throughout the battle on Damnos, the Ultramarines are beset upon by packs of flayed ones, which have hidden themselves beneath the ground. Of course, the wily Tigurius cannot be fooled by their treacherous ways.
Obviously. Now, the flayed ones themselves are basically led by Satar the Enfleshed, who is the flayed one's lord, and I really like the parts where Nick Kyme describes him, just to give you a quick bit of trivia on this, because he's like an animal, like a predator on the hunt. He's not a commander, not a royal in any sense. He is just out there for the flesh and the blood and leads his packs accordingly. And weirdly enough, you get those segments out of his perspective, and he has like flashbacks to his like time as a living being all the time. He's basically imagining himself among like green pastures and hunting for prey, and that's sort of strangely endearing. I think that was like the Necron character I felt the most with.
But I also think that part of the time he's actually having difficulties differentiating between
Exactly.
the reality and what he dreams that he's doing.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So the rules for the Flayed Lords, just a regular bog standard Flayed Lord is 100 points, weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 4, strength 4, toughness 5, wounds 3, initiative 2, attacks 4, leadership 10, and a 3+ save. Whereas Sata the Enfleshed, we bump his points to an extra 30 to 130 points, and give him a initiative of 4 and an attacks of 5. Sata the Enfleshed is described as being very, very fast. So if you want to make your own, fast, agile Flayed Lord, you can just use Sata the Enfleshed, just like most other people use named characters. So unit type infantry character, obviously. Unit composition is 1 Flayed Lord. And Sata the Enfleshed himself counts as a Flayed Lord, which matters later.
So, talking about his war gear, he's got slicing claws and ropes of flesh. And I'm just gonna explain real quick what those do. So, the slicing claws are especially adept at flaying the flesh from a living being and have the following profile. Range is obviously close combat, strength user, AP5, type melee, special rules, rending, and shred. And the Flayed Lord's number of attacks for having multiple slicing claws has already been included in their profile that Adam already talked about. Second bit of equipment would be ropes of flesh. A Flayed Lord wears the ropes of its victims proudly, like their skin as ropes, more so, and even becomes morose when their ropes become rotten and unsightly, fueling an urge to collect new ropes. So he's all about flaying people and wearing their skin, as we talked about before. These ropes grant the Flayed Lord the Fear special rule. And if the Flayed Lord or the unit he has joined destroy a unit of infantry, he dons new ropes made from the flesh of one of those victims, granting a -2 modifier to further rolls against the Flayed Lord's fear checks.
Yeah, when you see the flesh of your friends donned on a robot from hell, that generally has an effect on your psyche.
Yeah, it's just a wholly different impact in, like, seeing him enfleshed in flesh ropes is already terrifying enough, but if you have a personal relationship with those people, that's sort of, wow.
It makes the Ultramarines in the book really, really mad.
It does.
All right, special rules.
Yeah. So his special rules are very much like a lot of both HQ choices and Necrons. He's ever-living, independent character. He has Deep Strike, he can infiltrate, and he has the Necron reanimation protocols. He's a Flayer Pariah, he can have a Flayed Court, and Sata the Enfleshed has Feel No Pain.
Yeah. The Flayer Pariah means a unit may not join or be joined by this unit unless it is a flayed one. also has a special rule or is otherwise described in this story block as having the Flare Curse. That's something I think that GW should do more, is leave things kind of a little more open-ended as far as exceptions to the rule. Because even though it doesn't say Flayed One or doesn't say having Flare Curse or Flare Pariah, if you see a unit in some Imperial Armor book somewhere and it says Flare whatever, feel free to put them in there, because they do have the Flare Curse. So story-wise, that makes sense. Furthermore, Flayed Lord does not count as a Necron Lord for the purpose of selecting a royal court or other considerations from Codex Necrons.
Alright, yeah. And the Flayed Court special rules mean that an army list which includes a Flayed Lord may select up to 2 units of Flayed ones as troop choices. So either that, or you just go unbound with the new edition and just go all out crazy and have all those,
Yeah. It's cool. So yeah, Satadian Flesh is the only one that gets Feel No Pain. So his 30 points is pretty. You guys can play with it. Y'all can play with it. If you think that it's not enough points, let us know, and we'll make an adjustment.
Definitely. So wrapping this up, as for options, he may take the following items for the usual cost of a Necron Lord: the Phylactery, Resurrection Orb, and Phase Shifter, which you should be familiar with.
Yeah, we decided not to go with the Mind Shackle Scarabs or any other kind of war gear like that. If you do see war gear like that in another book, I would not allow it for this character, because the Scarabs know better than to get involved with something that has the Flare Curse.
Yeah, he's bad company.
Or he's a rock band from the 80s. Moving on.
Remember, kids, people who wear the skins of their enemies are not your friends.
Yeah.
Now for the armies participating in Seized Ground Ambush. This scenario assumes that there is a clear attacker and a clear defender, and it is built from engagements with the Ultramarines as an attacker and Necrons with Flayed Ones, obviously, as the defender, but there is no reason for players to feel they must use those armies, so you can apply this to your collections and your army setups without any too big problem. Now, as for the battlefields, this scenario is played on a standard 6x4 board, and players are encouraged to use random terrain placement because, the environment is not the key to this whole thing, described in the Warhammer 40k rulebook, and you can obviously use some kind of narrative focus when choosing the terrain pieces you're using, but woods, ruins, and water features are encouraged. Those just make for great ambush set pieces. And to simulate the conditions on Damnos, if you're into that thing, the use of ruins and ice features is a very good idea. And along that, you can use our rules for the fog bank terrain we're gonna describe a little bit later on.
So the entire planet is prone to lots of fog and mist because it's covered in snow and ice. So any temperature changes, including weapons fire and just the rising of the sun, has a tendency to create fog. I spoke with Lathan from Burn-In Designs, and he actually did some initial ideas for acrylic fog templates that people can use, and I think this could be a really fun way, a fun terrain piece. Do you want to talk about it, Snart?
Yeah, Fogbank is a transparent 6-inch long and 2-inch tall piece of flat terrain. And if you put it, when you put it down, models even partially obscured by one fogbank have the stealth special rule. If the models are partially obscured by 2 fogbanks, they get the shrouded special rule instead. Models that are partially obscured by 3 fogbanks are considered to be completely obscured. You cannot target these models for any purpose.
Yeah, so it's kind of a way to not have giant fog banks on the table. So it's if you're even partially obscured, if you're not a flyer, you get the cover save from having the fog bank there. So they're deployed in groups of 4 as a single piece of terrain, and they must be within 4 inches of each other.
So as you place more and more of these, more of the table becomes obscured by fog, and it becomes more difficult to see things. But as you move around, suddenly it's like, oh, I can see some shadows in the fog, and you can start fighting again. So this makes for a sort of a night fight mission, but with a twist.
Yeah, with a twist. And you could even do an entire table of just fog banks, and it would almost work.
That would be
honest.
very interesting because, it works very well hand in hand with the novel that has a lot of very tense battle scenes on sort of open ground just because the side is obscured by fog and gases. Obviously, the fog banks are not a static kind of terrain feature because they're being moved around by the wind and by several battle circumstances. So what you do at the end of each game turn is that the players roll off, and the winning player will scatter all of the fog banks. This is how you do it. You roll a scatter die and a single regular die for each fog bank, single one, not double one like scattering with Deep Strike, and scatter it that number of inches. If a hit is rolled, on the other hand, then the player may change the orientation of the fog bank before it scatters. And then you are still moving them around, obviously, using the built-in arrow on the hit symbol to scatter it. And fog banks may overlap other pieces of terrain or each other, and obviously, I'm assuming units too.
Units can just walk right through these.
Exactly, it's not like a hindrance in terms of movement. And if a fog bank scatters to a point where it cannot be placed evenly on the table or a terrain piece, then you turn it or just reduce the amount scattered until it can be placed evenly on the table or a terrain piece. Now, another interesting part of this is a very clever mechanic as we feel towards Adam. And in the future, we might reuse it for, weapon systems which might generate similar effects and that kind of stuff. So you can look forward to that.
Right. So we do have an alternative mysterious terrain for your fog banks if you want to use them. We have, if you're using the narrative terrain setup, of course, you can just choose one of these special special fog banks. For example, you may also want to put them, if you're not doing like an ice field, but you have woods and water features, it's more narrative to put the fog banks over those kinds of features because those features have moisture in them, especially if there's a dawn scenario. The woods and the water may have fog banks over them or start with fog banks over them.
If you want to do random assignment of what kind of fog this is, then you roll a d6, and on a 1 and a 2, it's normal fog bank. So, no special effect. If you roll a 3, then you get smoke, and where there's smoke, there's fire. So what you do is that you don't scatter the smoke terrain, you just place a base, either a 25 or 40 millimeter base, in the middle of it, and this represents the source of the fire. The base becomes dangerous terrain, and otherwise you treat it as a normal fog bank. On a 4, you get incapacitating gas. This is a gas which is often used by planetary police forces for crowd control. If a non-vehicle model passes through incapacitating gas, or is passed over by a scattered bank of incapacitating gas, then the model's movement is reduced by 3 inches for the duration of the turn, including shooting and assault phases. Models with a 3+ or better armor save are immune to the effect, otherwise treat this as a normal fog bank.
That's right.
On the 5, you get poison gas, which is starting to get a little bit dangerous. A poison gas feature represents a billowing mass of gas which can render casualties in a unit of infantry.
We all know that phenomenon from, game stores. Oh, God, sorry for that.
Yeah.
It has the distinction of being true, Camille.
Yeah. If a model passes through poison gas or is passed over by a scattered bank of poison gas, it must take a dangerous terrain check. Abilities which grant a model protection from dangerous terrain, such as move through cover, do not work against poison gas. Models with a 3+ or better armor save are immune to this effect, as are models with the mark of Nurgle, or otherwise have Nurgle in their unit name. Otherwise, treat this as a normal fog bank again.
Yeah, that seems like it'd be a weird, like an ability which is kind of tough to adjudicate, but let's be honest, Nurgle should have no problem with poison gas.
Not with any kind of it, right.
Yeah. It's kind of a narrative nod. Players are welcome to not use that, but let's be honest, they really should be immune to it.
Yeah, I do agree. They can actually be affected by poison, but I would say that the whole feel no pain thing kind of makes them just like, yeah, whatever. It's just smelly air.
We should say that there's an alternate rule for Nurgle where if they're passed over by a fog bank or passed through a fog bank, they improve their feel no pain by +1.
Possibly.
Or they improve the fog bank by 1.
Yeah. It's a good narrative idea. So what's next? What's a 6, Snorri?
Oh, that is all kinds of fun, because that's corrosive gas. And that is a deadly melange of substances designed to affect a myriad of materials. So nothing is going to help you against this stuff. Any models passing through or being passed over by a bank of corrosive gas must take a dangerous terrain check. Abilities which grant a model protection from dangerous terrain, such as move through cover or a dozer blade, do not work against corrosive gas. So this can actually kill vehicles and Space Marines alike, because this just breaks down whatever the material it comes in contact with.
Right. And again, these mysterious terrain are totally optional. Just like any other mysterious terrain. And I think, like with most mysterious terrain, it's better used in a narrative fashion than a random fashion. But if you're just playing a crazy game, go for it, And like I said, my buddy Lathan, he showed me some designs, and if he puts them on his web store, again, remember, we don't take any kickbacks from anybody creating any kind of product associated with our podcast, like the bags that the one gentleman created with our podcast logo. We do not. Our policy is to not make any kind of money off of this podcast.
Definitely, yeah.
But we strongly encourage people to get excited about the podcast and do things associated with the podcast. It's totally fine with us. Just don't attribute it to yourself. So, deployment. The deployment type is random. Do whatever kind of deployment type you feel. You can do a random one, or you can set it up narratively. The defender does deploy first in the normal way, with one exception being the deployment of ambushers. Defender may select up to 3 units with which to place in reserve as an ambush, described under special mission rules. Independent characters attached to an ambushing unit does not count towards the maximum of 3 ambushing units. So you can have 3 units, one of them being including an independent character if you so wish. Or 2 of them, however many independent characters you have. The defender will secretly write down on his army list the area terrain within which their ambushing units are hidden. It may be helpful to add a numbered token next to each piece of area terrain to make this easier. Only 1 ambushing unit may be assigned per piece of terrain, and the terrain pieces may be anywhere on the board, including their opponent's deployment zone. The ambushers are not revealed quite yet. For games of more than 2,000 points, it is suggested that you add an additional unit to the ambush for every 500 additional points you play. So, does that make sense to you guys? So, 3 units are hidden in terrain, and it's secretly noted by the defender.
It's exactly in the spirit of the scenario, yeah. Totally.
Okay. Yeah. It harkens back to one of my favorite scenes in this book, which is the Space Marines have found some guerrilla fighters, some old miners that have been fighting, and found actually interesting ways of disabling the Necrons once they're dead, so they don't phase out and get repaired. And they're back at the camp of these guerrilla fighters, and everything is looking pretty okay. There's a bit of a storm brewing, and everyone's in their tents trying to get warm again and patch up any wounds they have. And suddenly there's just a bunch of flayed ones just coming crashing out of the ice, killing people left and right. So these guys are everywhere, and they will come when you least expect it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But the attacker deploys in the normal way. The attacker just deploys.
The turn sequence would be that during the first turn, the attacker obviously automatically goes first, and the defender may not attempt to seize the initiative, so no roll-off for you. And in terms of game length, you use just the standard cut-and-dry variable game length. Now, for victory conditions and objectives, players earn victory points by holding area terrain as objectives. A scoring unit holds a piece of terrain by having all of the models of that unit in the terrain. Yes, even your 30-man guard blob does have to adhere to the rule. Conscripts and all. And a denial unit may contest a piece of terrain by having all of the models of the unit in the terrain. Each piece of area terrain held is worth 3 victory points, and First Blood and Slayer Warlord are worth 1 point each, while Linebreaker is worth an additional 3 points for this scenario.
So, special mission rules are as follows. You can have night fighting, mysterious objectives and reserves, and you have ambush and flush out. Those last two are our own. Ambush is that units hidden in terrain may reveal themselves at any time during the defending player's turn, and if you play this by the book, then the defending player is the Necrons. All models must be placed in their corresponding terrain if possible. If the attacker has any models on the terrain, then the defender may place their own models in base contact with the attacker's models. In this case, they count as being engaged in an ongoing combat during the following assault phases. Otherwise, the defender may elect not to shoot with newly released units. Units which are revealed in this manner may assault the turn they are revealed as long as they did not shoot that turn.
This is the enemy bursting out and attacking the unwary attacking force.
If we return to the scenario I described earlier with the guerrilla fighters, as these flayed ones come out of the ice, they're basically coming out claws first, impaling people as they come out.
Oh yeah, but if you're playing a scenario without Necrons, or if you're not running flayed ones or an assault force, you can choose to just jump up and shoot people if you want to. But you can't shoot if you assault. It's very similar to the Boss Zagstruck's ability to assault after the deep strike. If you're assaulting, you can't shoot.
So next up is Flush Out. The attacker's warlord possesses either a special piece of war gear, a biomorph, or other special power which allows them to detect enemy units hidden in terrain. After the warlord's units has moved, measure from the warlord or the hull of the warlord's transport. Any terrain feature within 6 inches must reveal their hidden models. If the attacker has models in the terrain, the defender may place their models in base contact with those models, as described in the ambush rule we just described. But, of course, the defender may not choose to assault the revealed units during the attacker's turn.
As awesome as that would be, no.
Yeah, as game-breaking as that would be.
This is kind of representing like when Sicarius and the Space Marines are trolling through the ruins. Sicarius stops them and says, "Hold on a second."
Did you just
mind explosions and a whole bunch of hidden flayed ones pop out of the ground and start jerking animatedly with electricity?
Did you just describe Sicarius as trolling? Really?
Dude, he is a troll. Look at him with his prescience. Screw that guy.
I think he's pretty much the most business ultramarine in that whole novel, to be honest.
He does a lot of business. That's true. He does a lot of work, but he's also a little, I don't know. You know, I don't mind Sicarius. At least he's not super ostentatious.
Nope. That he is.
So, after these initial skirmishes, the Space Marines start to gain some serious ground on Damnos. They really take the battle to the Necrons instead of like the PDF, which are kind of holing up in their main city. At this point, you start to notice in the book that the Necrons are way different than they've been perceived in the past. They're starting to use psychological warfare with their Herald of Dismay. The initial assault by the Herald, this psychic or psychological assault, some people just blow their own brains out. Like it really affects the humans. They start using things like air superiority, surface to space, artillery, and bombardments, which is very strange. Some of their artillery is direct fire, like you see lances of green energy, but there's also like heavy Gauss bombardments that are happening throughout the planet.
Yeah, indeed. At this point, several, or at least one noteworthy human character, it's Adonar. What was Adonar's rank again? Anyway, he lost his family despite, I think, at the beginning of the novel, he's being counseled by the then active general to, like, get out his family out of the combat zone into the south or something like that. He fails to do that and loses his family in the later attacks, and he starts to lose it like regular PTSD, all the shenanigans. Right. It's a really sad sight because he's definitely one of the better guard officers.
Yeah, I like this guy a lot. He just stops caring. He's not really affected as much by the Herald of Dismay either. He really keeps his cool when it comes to that, even though he's emotionally distraught at the destruction of his family and his world. Somehow he keeps going, and I think it has to do with that. He wants revenge for the deaths that have happened on his watch.
Definitely.
What else do we have in this section of the book? This is more like part 2, where Sicarius, I think the big turning point is when Sicarius jumps in and destroys the Stormlord in a big one-on-one battle.
Yeah, and it's quite a duel, because here he is, a guy who seems to conjure up psychic powers like lightning, and the entire area is just covered with dark storm clouds. They can't see.
Wraiths are swirling around, killing people, phasing in and killing dudes and phasing out.
Yeah, so they're really the Ultramarines are really on the back foot on this one, because they're doing their best to just try to survive this, because how can you fight something when you can't see almost your hand in front of you when you stretch your arm? But Sicarius, he managed to find the Stormlord, and after a rather hefty duel, he manages to slay the Stormlord.
Now, here's something interesting that I noticed. It's that the cryptecs start talking about how the Stormlord is saved, but as if he's kind of just a memory engram in the consciousness of the Necrons, or in like a data bank somewhere. And I'm wondering if the body of the Necron is just plain meaningless, and that, especially like the warlords. And I'm wondering if there are more than one Stormlord out there. Like if the named characters are almost meaningless, and that every kind of area could have their own Stormlord or their own.
That is very interesting, because I can totally get your drift on this. If you have like the possibility to like transfer all the thought and like personality and everything out of a body being in a process of destruction back into the keep, where he just gets like uploaded into a new body, you technically should have the possibility to just replicate those thought patterns and that personality like infinite times. Because if you can transfer that data, there's logic pretty much dictates that you can also just copy and paste it around.
Yeah, so it almost makes fluffy sense that everybody uses stupid Stormlord.
But at the same time, it seems that part of the reason why the Necrons are devolving is that slight corruption creeps into this programming.
Yeah.
So it seems like they get more and more damaged the more they do this. So it's not a good thing to die too many times, it seems.
Yeah, I agree.
But, I agree. At another point is that I would think that the Stormlord isn't just one character. It is a special body with certain techno tools, if you want to call it that actually helps him create the storm that he conjures up. So I don't think it would be good to just lose the body, because I think it would be a specific body he needs to be able to do his job.
Yeah, which is why he doesn't show up immediately after. It would probably takes a while to build that kind of specialized body again. They talk about how it takes 2 weeks or so to build up a regiment of Necron warriors and get them into working order. I could assume that a really advanced technological body like the Stormlord takes a while to repair.
Yeah, and part of the tactic the Ultramarines actually use is that they try to cause as much damage as possible to as many Necrons as possible, simply to jam up the repair facilities for so long that when they take out special characters, it takes a long time for them to come back.
Now, I wonder, here's something else, a little thing I was thinking of. Throughout this book, it seems like whenever a leader is taken out, the Necrons seem to have no guidance, and they go to automatic defensive protocols. I'm wondering if there was in an early version of the Necron Codex a version of the rules where when you kill the enemy warlord, something bad happens to the entire force.
I don't think so.
No, you don't think so?
I haven't read the Codex super closely, but I do have it on my shelf, so I probably should check it at some point.
But there isn't one now. I'm just wondering if an early release of the Codex, maybe there was some kind of rule like that where
I know what you're talking about. I have the old 3rd edition Codex.
Ah, okay.
I'm pretty sure that it was always just a percentual fade out of the whole army after taking this amount of losses. I don't think that the warlord had anything particular to do with that, but I was never an expert on Necrons.
I was thinking more along the lines of Nick Kyme got a pre-copy of the 5th edition Necron Codex.
Oh, so that's what you mean. You're not talking about the previous iterations of the Codex, but rather about alpha or beta versions of the current one.
Yeah. It would be an interesting rule.
One thing is also back to when this book was released and everything was new and teasing the new codex, was that this actually hints even more about the whole personality of the lords and how the lords are actually more important now, because it's not just they're all programmed with the same code to destroy the universe. Now it actually seems that the lords have much more control over the rest of the Necron forces than in previous codexes.
Right,
in the previous codex.
Right. It's just not everybody isn't just following a set program. There's actual some kind of thought, sentience behind the movements. And without the Lord, the Necron warriors just don't have the same sentience as they have with him.
Yeah, they don't have the processing power to make decisions themselves.
No. So, I think it's time to really talk about who I think are the real stars of this book, and that's the conscripts, the conscripts of Damnos, the miners. What do you guys think? That they actually save the Space Marines on several occasions. That's how they're truly introduced in this book. When the Space Marines are having a tough time and in their initial engagements with the Necrons and trying to gain ground, out of the white actually come these white clad human warriors throwing explosive bolas and hacking at Necron heads with awesome adamantine ice picks. Yeah, how cool are these guys?
Yeah, they're very much born into this environment and just learned a very hard lesson about surviving in it, about keeping their heads down, about how to operate stealthily. And the Space Marines, on the other hand, the Ultramarines especially, have sort of a problem going on there. It's not like they have any kind of scout squads with them. And they are oftentimes, during those attempts to, sneak up on the Necrons, referring to Sergeant Tillian, by the way, which is sort of a nice bit of trivia, because they're keep wishing that he would be around. Because those are like Space Marine tactical squads. They're not optimized for sneaking into that kind of environment. I guess they're radiating too much heat to truly blend in with the environment. And in general, power armor is not the kind of stuff you want to have on you when sneaking up to the enemy. And on the other hand, those conscripts, I'm not even sure if it's fair to call them conscripts, because I don't even really think that they have been conscripted like into the planetary defense. I think
they've
just
conscripted themselves.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's how they're described
acting
in the book.
on their own as a guerrilla force.
I want to start again. I think some of these quotes are really cool, and it really does describe these folks really well. This is where one of the Ultramarines, Ilulus, is talking to one of the conscript leaders. Ilulus didn't know who this person was, but he understood the sentiment. Men were more than just material that could wield a gun, throw a grenade, or drive a tank. They were flesh and blood, with hearts and minds, and it hadn't been an honored warrior, a stern-faced veteran, consigned to the lectorum, or even a chaplain that had taught the sergeant this. It had merely been a man, a minor at that. The Ultramarine felt humbled and wished that it could end differently for Falca Kolpek. So the Space Marines actually kind of learn a lesson about humanity through this engagement. I think it's really cool. So this unit is 45 points. You get 4 conscripts and a sergeant. The big difference here between these conscripts and regular Imperial Guard units is that their weapon skill is 4, and their sergeants have 2 wounds. They're tough and hardy, and they're more used to engaging in close combat than they're sort of like a Astra Militarum veteran unit, except instead of an increased ballistic skill, they have an increased weapon skill. So some human warriors aren't pressed into service of the Imperium. The very nature of their difficult lives hones them into fighting machines, and they are more than ready to step forward and do battle for their homes and families. They may be seen as a ragtag group of undisciplined wretches in the eyes of most Imperial commanders, but they can surprise even Astartes on the field of battle. These warriors are not only tough, but loyal. They're a tight-knit group, almost a family in and of themselves. Death-rolled conscripts are a troop's choice for Astra Militarum Army. If you wish to recreate the Damnos military actions, they may take any number of death-rolled conscripts as a formation for your Ultramarines detachment and count them as scoring units.
So, unit type, obviously infantry. The sergeant is a character. Basic composition would be 1 Deathworld conscript sergeant and 4 conscripts. And standard war gear is lasgun, frag grenades, and close combat weapons. As for special rules, you've got a 6+ feel no pain to represent that those are really some tough bastards. And also very used to, work with the environment and survive in the environment they're fighting in. They've just got that home advantage.
Yeah, and also it could be that actually they're just frozen, or they've had frost injuries that make them lose fingers, feet, basically any kind of body part, and they're in pain already, or they just lost feeling simply.
Yeah, that too. So those are some very tough veterans of that environment. Now, as for further special rules, you've got 2 custom ones, which would be Grim Reality and Undisciplined. Just to explain those real quick. Grim Reality means that the Deathworld conscript has seen more in their lives than most normal humans, and they are no strangers to violence or strange happenings. Their resolve is such that they stand strong in the face of danger, knowing that to flee from danger is usually just as fatal as facing it head-on. So they must reroll all failed morale checks.
Yeah, whether they want to or not.
Right, that's sort of important. And undisciplined just cements that they may not receive orders as per the Astra Militarum Amigo Codex rules. Just to clarify that.
Yeah, even if they had a commissar with them who said that, oh yeah, you have to do this, waving around his last pistol, threatening to kill people, he would be dead within 2 seconds because these guys know much better than the commissar what they need to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There are several options you can have for these guys. You can add up to 45 extra conscripts at 6 points per model. So this can be a monster blob squad if you want to. The entire unit may take bush training for 10 points, urban training for 10 points, or Mechanicum approved combat toxins at 1 point per model. So
Right.
Adam, what's those?
Bush training is the unit has move through cover and stealth special rule in woods, rivers, and any other similar natural terrain feature. Urban training is the unit has the move through cover and stealth special rules through ruins, over barricades, and any other similar man-made terrain feature, including the burning wreckage of destroyed vehicles. The Mechanicum-approved combat toxins give the unit Furious Charge special rule and improve their Feel No Pain to 5+ on the turn which they successfully assault an enemy unit. This doesn't appear in the book at all, but I figured this would be something that they would have.
Now, have you seen that Matrix animated short, The Second Renaissance?
Oh,
By the way,
man, a long time ago.
Speaking of combat drugs, that's sort of what this made me think about. I sort of was hoping that was your inspiration for it. But
My
whatever.
inspiration was Vietnam, and also I was thinking of the Catechins, and also Star Trek, the first episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, where the human warriors of the atomic wars actually have cocaine in their suits. A built-in cocaine dispenser in their suits.
Wow, I didn't even remember that part about Star Trek: The Next Generation.
He's talking about the episode where Q...
Oh yeah. All right, the whole court thing, the post-apocalyptic one. All right,
Yeah, so
yeah, you got me.
awesome.
All right, so that was a plethora of nerddom.
Yeah, it really was. I love. I think I could go toe to toe with Johnny from the Overlords on Star Trek: The Next Generation lore. I think that needs to happen sometime.
I think we need a show off in that regard. Yeah, definitely.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. The gauntlet has been thrown down. Johnny versus Adam in the ring.
So, what do we got next? We have weapon and armor upgrades.
Any model in this squad can take a makeshift power weapon for 1 point per model.
Yeah, so this represents it's not a tool. It's not a tool like the Adeptus Astartes or Sororitas have. It's not like an actual weapon, but instead, they take the weapon, the tool of their trade with them into battle. Whether it's a plasma cutter, a vibro hammer, or power ice picks. Whatever, what have you. It's a strength user, AP4 melee makeshift weapon. The makeshift special rule when in corresponding to weapons is that it strikes at -1 weapon skill. So they basically lose their improved 4 weapon skill when they use these makeshift power weapons.
So basically it's kind of like having a sledgehammer that you picked up because, well, you can hit harder with it, but it's kind of unwieldy, but you're big and strong, so it's not quite that unwieldy.
Yeah, exactly. It's not built to fight with.
Yeah. Next up is improvised flak armor for 2 points per model.
Yeah, they just pick up whatever they have lying around, put some plates in there. Otherwise, it just counts as normal flak armor.
And last up is explosive bolus at 1 point per model.
Yeah, these are cool. An explosive bolas is a one-use crack grenade with the shred and armorbane special rules. We suggest that you just bring some tokens to mark which models have used their who've used their explosive bolas during the game, or put the token on them and remove it when they use them.
You had a lot of fun writing those rules, right?
Yeah, these guys are so cool. I'm surprised that this kind of unit doesn't exist in the Astra Militarum Codex, to be perfectly honest.
They sort of remind me of Steiner's Last Chancers, or whatever they were called.
Right. And you'd think
Schaefer's, sorry, not Steiner.
Yeah.
Schaefer. That was a different movie.
I would absolutely love to use this unit, by the way, in my games.
Any model may replace their last gun with the following: shotgun for 1 point per model. No improvised shotgun, though. That's just an honest-to-God real shotgun. As well as the last pistol. And for free. And the combat shield for 1 point per model.
That should
Now,
probably be an improvised combat shield.
that should probably be an improvised one. Now, most likely some kind of dinner plate or tablet or whatever.
Whatever they got laying around. Ribcage
A trash
Necron
can.
ribcage. That would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Now for something real exciting I like a lot, because the conscript sergeant may take the following: a makeshift suit of power armor for 10 points. You have to imagine that power armor-like suits are also used for industrial purposes, where at this point I would call it more like something like servo armor, or rather a servo suit that just, enhances your bodily strength up to heavy duty levels of work capacity. And now
Just think about Aliens when Ripley goes into the loader unit.
well,
Get
I would-
away from her, you bitch.
I would actually think a bit smaller like this, I'm looking for a movie reference here, but no, I'm not finding any. Basically, what they are developing for the US military right now, and which at the moment is not portable, I think, but on cables, but it still has... I've seen some videos, and those are pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think the difficult thing is the power source drains very quickly.
Yeah.
We need baby sons to
we
carry
need
around with
cold
us.
fusion.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
anyway.
I suggest anybody who wants to do this, go ahead and put it on a 25 millimeter, a 40 millimeter. Use the Ripley model that's being produced for the Alien versus Predator game. Use whatever you want for this, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of models out there that will be suitable for that from third parties. I didn't research any of that, but I'm sure we could come up with a list if we wanted. Anyway, This is basically like, a servo loader suit, which is normally not intended for combat, but that kind of servo suit gives you a lot of opportunity to just weld some armor plates to it. And this wouldn't obviously be, as reliable or as durable or as campaign capable or capable to function over decades of combat like a regular Astartes suit of power armor. But for one battle, that will certainly serve the purpose. And now, as for the rules for makeshift power armor, it grants the wearer slow and purposeful, but that does not confer the ability to the unit. That's an important one. And while the model wearing the armor obviously may not run, the unit may do so around it, similar to when you do have a heavy weapons marine who's just standing there, and the armor and his unit around him is allowed to move as long as he stays standing.
Yeah.
So yeah. And it also grants the wearer a +2 strength and a 3+ armor save as per, the last part as per power armor rules. And +2 strength because normally it's used for industrial heavy lifting and stuff.
Yeah, so what do you guys think? I think that might be fun, just to have one person in the unit kind of slogging forward, maybe with a plasma gun, shooting and walking and running and assaulting, and "Rawr, I'm a big robot."
Yeah, something similar in the book Firecast, which is an Imperial Guard book against the Tau. Came out with the new Tau Codex. And there you actually have the ruling class on the planet where this regiment was formed. They actually have a power armor-like suit that they can run around with. Unfortunately, they decide to run around with power armor suits in a swamp.
Yeah. So I'm gonna shoot through the rest of this really quick.
By the way, real quick about the improvised power armor. No, you're not giving a plasma gun to that guy. At least a grav gun. Come on, he's slow and purposeful. Not even a heavy flamer or a heavy bolter.
Get those 3 shots in. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So I'm going to blow through these real quick. One model in 10 may take a melt-a-bomb for 5 points. One model in 10 may replace their las gun with a sniper rifle, melt-a-gun, flamer, bolter, storm bolter. It basically represents them picking up whatever is lying around.
Yeah, mostly marine stuff, I guess, from past battles or something like that.
Right, or melt-a-guns.
Guard stuff,
yeah, exactly. If that model's the conscript sergeant, they may take, because they take the best stuff themselves.
Obviously.
They can take a plasma pistol, grav pistol, plasma gun, grav gun, heavy flamer, or heavy bolter.
Or gen.
Yeah, imagine strapping that onto the makeshift power armor. Roar,
Yes.
How cool would
I'm
that
getting
be?
quite an orky vibe from this.
What? I don't know what you're talking about. They can all take close combat weapons, and they can move an assault with a heavy bolter? What? I don't know what you're talking about.
Adam.
So, 1 model in 10, any model may replace their close combat weapon with the following. Power weapon, power fist. If that model is the conscript sergeant, they may take one of the following instead. Thunder hammer.
Yeah, it's an ice hammer. It's used to, like, I don't know, smash ice into something that fits your long drink glass.
Yeah, and I'm imagining if they take the power armor, it's just built into the suit where it's just this pneumatic hammer of death, like a jackhammer or something.
Yeah, I can just see that whole thunder hammer thing being just like, Leonard, the machine is frozen up again. Give it a whack.
Dun, dun, dun. Lastly, for up to 1 model in 10, 2 Deathworld conscripts which have not received a special weapon upgrade may be upgraded to a heavy weapons team. Heavy weapons teams count as 2 models for determining how many upgrades may be taken in the squad. This is because the special weapons don't go on the sergeants, they go on 1 in 10, so they count as 2. The heavy weapons team may, if you wish, still take upgrades such as makeshift power weapons or even a power fist. So you can have a heavy weapons team with a power fist if you want. Whatever. They're conscripts. They just got whatever's lying around, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
The thing is, I really... Yeah, it does seem orky, but it's always perplexed me that there's no way to grab a unit from the Imperial Guard troops section and kit it out for close combat. It just never really made sense to me. Not even the conscripts can be used.
Oh, you pretty much had that with. I'm not even sure anymore if it was the 3rd or 4th edition Guard Codex, but you had doctrines in there that were very similar to Space Marine chapter rules. And you could, you had the mobile infantry doctrine, and I think that was about, for example, like cutting all your infantry out with chimeras, and you had to, but that was sort of awesome. And you also had I think a primitive world thing going on, where all of your regular guardsmen exchanged their las guns for las pistols and close combat weapons.
Right. So I think that if you do kit them out for close combat, I would say just in general you can mix it up and have las guns and close combat weapon and las pistol. The cultist models might work really well for these guys, but it's up to you. You can use orc bits, whatever. Maybe the catechins are actually a really good
I think
to use for these.
I would normally think like a mix of catechin and Cadian parts, but the catechin arms are just so ridiculous. It's a shame. I put those on a Cadian model, and they look like hell. What I would actually suggest to use for those are Victoria miniatures. Victoria Lamp does a great range of part kits with arms and different looking las guns and heads and torsos and legs
and realistic females too.
Exactly.
Realistic female characters, which are wonderful for this, because in this kind of group you're going to see a lot of females taking up arms.
Let's be honest about
country.
This. You would see those among most regiments. GW just doesn't want to put out those miniatures for some reason.
Yeah, because we won't go into that.
Yeah, but it's a shame they don't. And Victoria Lamp miniatures, I think it is where you should go for that, because my God, I totally have to get myself some of those at some point just to find an excuse to use them, because those are so grand. Anyway,
and to sidetrack this even more, if these conscripts are picking up everything, then they're sort of like Katamari Damacy.
They just roll around picking up whatever they want, like their equipment vacuums.
Yeah, all in all, this is just a unit of unlikely survivors that have not only picked up a lot of survival and combat skills.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, from a personnel's perspective. Yeah, good point. So, hey guys, I think we're running a little long, so let's roll into scenario 2, advance and execute. This is a really simple scenario. It's meant to be very simple. In a lot of conflicts, it's up to the trooper to do two things and do it well. One of those things is destroy the enemy, and the other is to take ground from the enemy. A great deal of this warfare is seen throughout portions of Fall of Damnos, and it seeks to duplicate these objectives. This is also a great way of introducing narrative players into the dual scenario type mission, which I think has a lot of tactical depth, and it's a lot of fun, and it also represents true battlefield conditions where you might have multiple missions going on at once. It's interesting, and I think even though it's used by a lot by tactical players, and I think it has a real narrative bent to it as well that I think is not really explored a lot. What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely. So, as for the armies involved in scenario number 2, while this scenario is designed for use of any army, you can recreate the battles in part 2 of Fall of Damnos. Then you may select any Necron forces you desire for one side of the conflict, and as for the Imperium, you select Ultramarines, Infantry, or Dreadnoughts, accompanied by Imperial Guard to represent the Damnosian defense forces, and any number of Death World conscripts, which we described in detail.
Yeah.
Next up is how to deal with the battlefield and the game itself. First turn is a regular roll-off, and the deployment will be Hammer and Anvil to represent the need to advance and hold territory. So, as with Scenario 1, this scenario is played on a standard 6x4 table. Players are encouraged to use a random terrain placement as described in the rulebook, and also use some kind of narrative focus when choosing their pieces. To simulate the conditions on Damnos, the use of ruins and ice features are most encouraged, along with the use of fog bank terrain described previously.
Yeah, so it's really just a very, very simple placement. Damnos is it's been bombarded so much that ruins combined with the fog banks are a really great way to simulate those conditions.
Yeah.
Our store actually just put together some very cool 4x4 pieces of terrain that to better represent 40k terrain. Our boards are all grassy. So they actually took the time to put together some padded squares to put on the 8x4 boards that we have, and one of them is snow terrain. So it's really cool. It doesn't take much time. It's just big pieces of plywood with padded like pleather colored terrain over it, or sheets over it, which is really cool.
Yeah. One thing that we have in our gaming group is that the guy we play at, he has purchased these really high definition PDFs that he has printed onto banners, and I'm not talking about like paper banners. We're talking about that plastic, so they're super durable.
Yeah,
and we now have urban terrain, and we have snow terrain printouts, and where you have a Starfield, from what I understand. I don't remember the company, but next show I'll make sure to ask him and see if I can get that on air, because those are just beautiful.
Let's not forget the battle mats that are made by the Frontline Gaming guys and the guys who do the magnet cases. Those are really cool too, like the giant mouse pad ones. Those are neat. We'll link to those as well. Special mission rules are night fighting and reserves. We decided that this simple mission should be usable throughout for whatever special mission rules you're going to be using. So that's it. Nothing really special here.
You want to keep your rules writing tight, even if you do like custom rules like this. And in this regard, night fighting and reserves as like universal rules are absolutely adequate. Yeah. Now, for the victory conditions and objectives of mission number 2, players score points in two ways. First, the table is divided into 2 foot squares as described for terrain placement. See the map that we have attached to the PDF you're going to be able to download alongside this episode. For each table square you dominate, you score 3 victory points. You dominate a table square by having more units in the square than your opponent. Scoring units count double, so take note. For example, if you have a tactical squad, like a scoring unit and a dreadnought in a table square, while your opponent has 3 units of scarabs in the same square, you tie, as in 3 versus 3. So, additionally, during this mission, players score 1 victory point for each enemy unit slain, as in completely obliterated. If you are recreating the battles in novel Fall of Damnos, then, if the forces of the Imperium score Slay the Warlord, they receive 4 additional victory points for the feat instead of just 1. Similarly, if the forces of the Imperium, on the other hand, fail to score Linebreaker, the Necron forces receive 3 additional victory points. Secondary mission objectives are in play as normal.
So that represents the realization that when the leader of a Necron detachment is killed, it has special meaning. So you get extra points for Slay the Warlord.
Which reflects Ultramarines' tactics, that they try to target the leaders so that the rest of the Necrons fall back to their simple protocols, because then they become much easier to deal with.
Right. And this kind of plays off of something that's been going on in the community a little bit, and making the secondary objectives more interesting, and creating new secondary objectives to use in your games, or making some of the existing secondary objectives more valuable for certain kinds of missions. And in this one, I think that we've used them in a slightly interesting way that reflects the fluff of what's going on Damnos. Feel free to experiment at your whim. Let us know if you have any other interesting ways of manipulating the secondary objectives, or create secondary objectives of your own. So, turning the tide. So Sicarius is forced to retreat several times, which is a little bit humbling for him, but it shows that he's not a total moron. He's perfectly willing to retreat when it's tactically important, or if the only answer. He's brash, but not to the point where he doesn't
willingly want to sacrifice people. He doesn't throw people into certain death.
Yeah, he doesn't sacrifice people wantonly. He's not a total moron.
Honestly, I don't even feel like he would be any idiotic, as you mentioned before. I think he's just a very risky commander in terms of his style.
Yeah, he's brash.
I think the main reason why we perceive it that strongly is the fact that he's among Ultramarines, and we're sort of not, counting on Ultramarines doing things like that. We just judge them way more conservative than this, and so Sicarius is standing out even more. Right.
So, who's awesome though?
Agrippin?
Agrippin is he's from the first company, you said, right? Right, Snorri?
Yeah.
He gives such. So here's the thing: some of the dreadnoughts seem like they're so old and mechanical that they've lost some of their sentience. But Agrippin does not seem afflicted in that way. He seems like he still has some of his personality, and he gives some really good advice, to the point where at some point in the last battle, he actually takes command.
Yeah, and if you read a little bit about the Space Wolves, their dreadnoughts are sort of like vessels used to keep the stories alive, because they are kind of like the archives of the Space Wolves. Agrippin is kind of the same, because here's a dreadnought that has eons of wisdom that he likes to dole out to people when they need it. So he's a bit of a father figure. It's like the one that helps people see the potential and see the wisdom in doing certain things that they don't really want to do themselves. They're just like, yeah, well, right. we want to do this. I was like, no, you should wait. Patience is a good thing.
Right. Yeah. And they're just depicted as just beasts in combat too. That assault cannon, man, that thing revs up and starts tearing into infantry. It is a nightmare.
Yeah. Anyway, now what happens here, like during the climax of the novel, would also be that Jin, one of the survivor conscripts, I think the leader of a squad actually, leads a strike team of Space Marines, actually led by Tigerius, and including Scipio, one of the viewpoint characters, through the mountains to where the Necrons are hiding their heavy artillery bombarding Kelmport. And at this point, Space Marines really respect those conscripts. They really appreciate those fighters, which is very nice to read. Very human
it's really
perspective
cool. I almost get the feeling that Scipio is kind of falling for Jin a little bit. Actually,
in a cutesy
it
way.
may not be true, but he respects his battle brothers in that same way. Where he, so it might be just a figment of my imagination where I'm projecting this since it's a female instead of a male.
Adam, among the masters of the Forge, you are definitely the master of the shipping yards.
Yeah, I am. Shipping. Yes. Anyways, go on, buddy.
All right. So at this point, the Imperial forces relatively quickly ambush and overcome the few guards positioned there, because the Necrons are pretty much relying on the whole shroud cover. But on the other hand, Tigerius has to fight the Voidbringer, who is the commander of that part of the operation, and that turns out into quite a nasty psychic duel, mostly due to the fact that the whole Necron darkness deal that the Voidbringer has going on is deadening the warp and Tigerius' ability with prescience.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. So the architect has the ability of chronometry. He can predict future events, and he can actually see events unfold by just through the calculation of probabilities. And his goal is to actually destroy the Voidbringer because, well, we'll talk about because later. The architect orchestrates things so that the Voidbringer is stationed in this backfield position.
And clashes with Tigerius. Exactly.
Yeah, it just so happens Tigerius is going to be attacking. Not only that, he gives the Voidbringer a gift in the hopes, or it appears to be in the hopes that Voidbringer will favor him when he rises to power after the crazy Destroyer Lord is killed in combat. So, this is a whole double cross thing, right? The Voidbringer and the Architect are setting up the Destroyer Lord to die in combat against Sicarius, while at the same time, the Architect is setting up the Voidbringer to die in combat to Tigerius.
Among other things, because he receives, I think it's a resurrection orb that has been sabotaged.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just, wow.
Here, Lord, take this resurrection orb so you don't die.
Oh, by the way, this resurrection orb acts the exact opposite. So when Scipio and some of the other Marines save Tigerius from being destroyed, and Tigerius starts throwing horrible electricity death into the Voidbringer. Voidbringer cackles and activates the resurrection orb and starts to repair. And he's like, "Ha ha ha! I'm going to kill you!" And then all of a sudden starts disintegrating. He's very sad about that.
Yeah, not a fitting end for the Voidbringer. On the other hand, nobody liked that guy, so
no, nobody liked him anyways.
So
yeah, we have a scenario for the mission that they undertake. You know, we didn't actually do a mission for the final battle because some of these battles are very obvious, and you don't need help from us to develop missions to represent a lot of these combat or a lot of these engagements. But the sabotage mission is a cool mission that you can use to simulate any number of similar scenarios. All right, so scenario 3 is sabotage. This scenario attempts to simulate an attacking force whose job it is to sabotage enemy targets while defending force attempts to thwart the attackers. So here's the quote from the book. I like this one. Jin breathed deeply, trying to master her terror, and achieved a small amount of calm. It was just enough to remove the explosive payload from the pack, arm it, and attach the whole thing to the pylon. She wanted to detonate it immediately, but the resulting firestorm would kill her if she didn't get clear. Instead, she pulled out her pistol and made for the next artillery piece. This kind of shows how the conscripts steal their resolve, no matter how scared they get. Throughout the book, they just steal their resolve and go for it and do what needs to be done. I think that's great.
Yeah. This is just a spectacular operation when it comes to seeing how actually, I would say the conscripts aren't even on par with Space Marines. They're actually outdoing the Space Marines in terms of bravery, because here you have these psycho-conditioned super soldiers. They're going in like this is a normal, everyday move. But the humans who are with them actually do almost better than the Space Marines in terms of going for the attack. There's like, okay, so I'm going to do my best. I might die, but, screw it. I have to do this.
Yeah, and it's not like the Space Marines would balk at that insinuation. Throughout this, they're like, yeah, these humans...
They have attitude.
He said several times, Iliolus says, you would have made a really good Space Marine.
Yeah.
Or a really good Ultramarine.
Yeah.
All right.
This scenario assumes that there is a clear attacker and a clear defender. While this scenario is built from engagements with the Ultramarines accompanied by conscripts as the attackers and Necrons as the defender, there is no reason for players to feel that they have to do it like this. Note that it might be more fun to know ahead of time whether a player is the attacker or the defender before building lists for this scenario. So that actually reminds me a little bit about a campaign that I tried out. It was written by one of my friends. And the first engagement decided who was the attacker and the defender for the entire campaign.
Right.
Which is very interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was playing Tau in 5th edition at the time, and I won the first engagement, which means I got completely rolled for the entire campaign.
That's sort of your shtick, isn't it? It's always, unfortunately. All right. So, as for first turn, you roll off as normal. And for game length, pretty much a usual variable, game length 2. The battlefield is made up of a standard 6x4 board. Players are encouraged to use random terrain placement. And some kind of narrative focus is, as always, advised to simulate the conditions on Damnos, ice and ruin features. You know the drill by now. And alongside this, you can also use the fog bank terrain described in the supplement.
Cool. Deployment is a little different. It's almost like the regular Dawn of War, except the Defender's deployment zone is advanced 12 inches. So there is the Defender deploys a full 24 inches from their long table edge, while the attacker only deploys 12 inches from their table edge, leaving only a 12-inch no man's land in between.
Special mission rules for this scenario is night fighting, mysterious objectives, and reserves.
So as for victory conditions and objectives, there are 6 objective markers used in this game. 3 are placed by the attacker and 3 are placed by the defender. All objective markers must be placed within the defender's deployment zone. And if an attacker's scoring unit is holding an objective at the end of their turn, remove it from play. For each objective removed from play at the end of the game, the attacker scores 3 victory points. For each objective remaining in play at the end of the game, the defender scores 3 victory points. So this obviously represents, blowing up the artillery that doesn't have an active influence on the battle itself, but is like aimed far off onto the city of Calmport.
That's right.
And for the purpose of this mission, Elite's choices are scoring units, just representing the fact that this is like a crucial commander mission at its core. And secondary mission objectives are in play as normal. So you have like Linebreaker, Slated Warlord, and First Blood.
Yeah, and for this mission, Defender, be careful of those infiltrating units. Definitely wanna, because they can score. They could score a lot of objectives if you're not capping your objectives at the beginning, which kind of forces the defending player to kind of put their units closer to the front line.
All right. And now, as for that, we also have some alternative victory conditions and objectives. So, Snorri, why don't you give us the gist of those?
Sure. To make the game a little bit more interesting, you can have some alternate victory conditions and objectives. It might be more interesting to select different battlefield debris or even include one archaeotech artifact as the objectives in this mission. Of course, if these objectives would pose too great a benefit for the defending player, work out a points value for these benefits before the start of the game.
Yeah, I'm thinking like quad guns or something weird like that.
Yeah, maybe you can put up a shield that kind of like a void shield.
Oh, that would be cool. Void shields would be a neat idea.
Yeah, because, well, it's an artillery position, but you don't really want people to snipe in with a las cannon, so you could probably have some kind of shielding technology around it.
Right, and these in the actual mission, these artillery pieces actually do have void shields, so that's actually an excellent suggestion, Snorri.
Yeah, and the other one that we have included is timed explosives. So instead of just destroying the objectives right away, if you're holding the objectives at the end of your turn, place a sabotage token on it. For each turn the defender is holding an objective, remove a sabotage token from it.
So that represents the attacker sabotaging and the defender repairing. So it's just kind of like a give and take. If the attacker comes in and sabotages it, the defender can destroy the attacker and then remove the sabotage.
Yeah. There's no limit to the number of sabotage tokens an objective can have on it. Just before the game ends, each sabotage token explodes, destroying the objective with it. In addition, deal Strength 8 AP2 Barrage Blast hits out from the center of the marker to a distance of 2d6 inches for each sabotaged objective. This method is preferred if you are trying to recreate the Damnos story. And that's a bit of a sad ending, really, that to that scenario, that explosions do quite a lot of damage to the conscripts.
Yeah, those poor guys. Get out of the way! Run away! Run away! It's like the end of when the rebels are destroying the shield generator on Endor. Get out! Get out!
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That's our coverage of Fall of Damnos.
Yep, that's it. I'll tell you what. I did enjoy this book. At first I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, but the fact that at the end, Sicarius's bravado is kind of seen as it isn't seen as a negative thing. Like some of the Space Marines that were kind of questioning him at the beginning, towards the end, they started to respect it. They said, yeah, if he were more interested in politics than fighting the enemy, he would put himself in a lot less danger. He is just as willing to sacrifice himself as he is to sacrifice his battle brothers. And he is the first into combat. He's not totally reckless. He calculates risk and reward, and he is willing to sacrifice just as much as anybody else. He's not a total jackass, you know?
Yeah, and also, if anything, having those dreadnoughts from the first company visit or oversee the entire operation was actually a huge benefit for Sicarius, because if anything, the first company or the people in the first company now have a lot more respect for the guy than their company commander.
Right. And their main thing was to secure his position. Really, it worked the opposite of what the sergeants thought it was. You know, like you were saying, the sergeants thought that they thought that the dreadnoughts were there to censure them. Instead, the dreadnoughts showed that Sicarius was loyal to Calgar and was not just a power-hungry, brash fool. In fact, at the end, one of my favorite things is Sicarius goes whomping in, challenging the Overlord to a duel, fighting a big duel, and then is blindsided by the Necrons and is laid low by the Necron Overlord, Destroyer Lord, by taking a scythe to the chest, and he's totally laid low, and which is great because then Agrippin just walks up and smashes the Overlord to a pulp. It was great. It was such a anticlimax. Again, Sicarius gets knocked out, and Agrippin just walks up and goes, smash.
Yeah,
Right, everybody? And he takes command of the whole thing and routs the Necrons.
I have to say that I wasn't too big of a fan of the false suspense because, no, obviously Sicarius won't die because he's like the poster boy captain for the Ultramarines for 2 codices now. So, no, it won't happen. But sure, the whole anticlimax thing was very interesting to read.
Yeah, you know what? A good point. The false suspense. I like what you say, that how you said that, because the 2 conscript commanders who don't know each other are alive. Both of them are thought to be dead but revealed to not be dead, and the same thing happens with Sicarius. It got a little hammy there at the end, but the awesome anticlimax of Agrippin just smashing the Overlord and saying, "Let's get him, boys." It almost was like Agrippin was waiting for that to happen, just so Sicarius could be taught a lesson for his bravado. Oh, I don't want to put any words into the author's mouth, but I think that was almost on purpose.
I agree. I tend to agree. Yeah, definitely.
So, theme, what do you guys think? My guess was better to fight and die than just die. It was more of a militaristic novel than a really an introspective one, like Death of Antagonist was.
I think first of all, the only thing that saves this one from being like mostly bolter porn are the whole human perspective thing. I really like Jen and Falca, but that's just an A-side, because when you talk about theme, for me, like the overall theme of the novel was basically the whole leadership succession scheming, and how it is an element among the Ultramarines, but actually not one that comes from the top going like below to the lower ranks, to the sergeants and everything, but rather the other way around, that it is like perceived much stronger by the sergeants, and Captain Sicarius doesn't really care about that. He's just in for, he may be in for glory, but overall he wants to win. And that is in the interest of humanity. Necrons, on the other hand, sort of have that same thing, but they are ultimately crippled by it, by all those, intrigue in their own ranks and all the scheming and so on that cripples them in the end. But on the other hand, the Ultramarines prevail on the field, where they are in a lot of contrition, on the Senate floor. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So the recurring theme that I picked up on here was that you have Falca and Jin, the 2 miners. There's a bit of a love relationship between them, but it's not really explored because it's not really needed.
There's no place for it.
Yeah, there's no room for it. But they keep thinking that the other one is dead. So they do kind of reckless things. They have a reasonably reckless behavior because of this, but they never quite go as far as just completely suiciding themselves in combat, because I guess there's always that slight glimmer of hope that maybe there will be something better later. And at the end of the book, they actually find out that both are alive.
Yeah.
There's definitely that subplot, let's put it that way. I would definitely rather call it a subplot than the theme of the novel.
Yeah, it's not the theme, but I think it's a theme that even if everything seems lost, there's always something that should keep you going.
Yep, I like it, man. I like it. And, so I had no idea, but there's another book for this, including the Apocalypse Warzone.
Yeah. The Spear of McCrag is, as far as I can tell, actually it's like the book for the Apocalypse Warzone, right? Because that's basically when the Ultramarines come back to really kick the Necrons' ass. Because
in force,
yeah, because the end of the first book is actually that the Ultramarines, they retreat because they can't win the war as it is.
But they
Right.
have critically crippled the Necron Advance and Chain of Command, so they have like a fighting chance to come back in force.
Yeah.
And really mess things up. Now, that may be like sort of the excuse to write the follow-up novel, Spear of McGregor. But let's be honest, Spear of McGregor will be mainly about the fact that Falca and Jan finally get together. That's sort of what I want to read about the most.
It'll be their reunite and then how they whoop some Necron ass. I like the sound of that. However, I don't think I'm going to be able to read this book for the next episode, fellas. So,
Nah.
We might take a break. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, take a break, do another awesome alternative episode about something else. That'll be fun.
Especially since we have to also work through the Warzone Damnos book to see what GW already covered with their, rules writing.
That's true.
They actually have some environmental rules in that book. So it's kind of interesting. But what I was thinking was that one thing that's also about why there's no point in setting up a scenario for the last battle in the book is that we're talking about basically an apocalypse-sized battle. And
it's not much more than that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a huge battle, and that's it.
Yeah. Feel free, if you guys, if y'all want to recreate that mission, go ahead and just do a Necron versus Imperium apocalypse battle on a snowfield. It's fun.
Yep, exactly. Just get some newspaper down on the table and pretend it's white.
There we go. So, what do you think, guys? I think that's good.
I think it's time to wrap up.
Yeah, let's wrap up the show.
Yeah, this has been the Masters of the Forge, and I hope that we can have you back next episode in 2 weeks.
Yep. Until then, keep playing the game the way you want to.
This podcast is protected by the Creative Commons Attribution, No Derivatives, Non-Commercial International License. More information about this license and contact information if you have any requests can be found at our blog, mastersoftheforge.com. The music used in this podcast was made by Podod of the duo Sublevel 3. The track is used with his permission.
Urban training is the unit has move through cover stealth special rule in edit point. The unit has move through cover stealth. Urban training. The unit has move through cover and stealth special rules in ruins, over barricades, and any other similar. Really? Edit point.
I like the fact that they have like the special rule.
I'm channeling Snorri. I have English as a second language. All right, here we go. One more time. Urban training. Urban training. Edit point. Urban training. The unit has move through cover and stealth special rules. These special rules are only good for over ruins, barricades, and any other similar. The coffee.
What happened to the coffee?
Adam, only food is supposed to simmer.
Simmerer. I do have Asian blood in me, but not that much Asian blood. Okay, here we go. Racism. Urban training.
I'm sorry. Why am I even pushing talk?
Okay, urban training. The unit has the move through cover and stealth special rules through ruins, over barricades, and any other similar man-made terrain feature, including the burning wreckage of destroyed vehicles. Hooray! Hooray! Karoo Karay! All right.
You made it.
What the f*** is wrong with you?
Okay.